Hi, this is Bits and Pieces, the official podcast of Component Supply. I'm Kristin.
And I'm Mark.
And today we're going to be talking about some of the challenges with connecting some of the tubing that we work with. So we're going to talk first about PTFE, which has its own set of challenges from a material standpoint, and then we're going to talk about hypodermic tubing. So two completely different materials, 304 hypodermic tubing and a PTFE tubing. We get lots of requests for these. These are generally two of the product categories that we get the most sales in. Custom requests, particularly for the hypodermic tubing, precision cut pieces, even with PTFE tubing. It's just hard to work with PTFE tubing because of some of its key characteristics, particularly the lubricity of the tubing, right? Like, it's Teflon.
Right. There's a joke years ago, talking about cookware, like, how do you get Teflon to stick to the pan when nothing sticks to Teflon? Right,
exactly. And even though, I think some regulatory requirements are getting people to kind of stray away, it's going to be a while before we're away from PTFE. And even if not, the replacement materials that are going to be developed are going to have the same issue from a lubricity standpoint. Like, that is the quality that we're trying to maintain the integrity of regardless. Right. So there are issues with trying to connect this tubing into any kind of circuit, right? If you're trying to connect it to something, you're not using it as a liner, you're actually trying to connect it to some kind of circuit. There's a challenge with connecting it.
Yeah, there's we in our industry, a lot of people associate PTFE tubing with like a liner, an etched liner. But the reality is that's actually a very small portion of what PTFE tubing is used for.
Sure.
Primarily, it's used for jacketing in electrical, applications.
Yeah.
A lot of aerospace applications for that. But beyond that, there are chemical processing, pharmaceutical applications. There's even the printing industry uses it. Commercial printing industry uses it a lot because it doesn't the ink doesn't get stick inside the tubing.
Right.
So there's a lot of applications outside of just an etched PTFE liner that this is used for, and even in other applications, within the medical device industry, you'll see this material used.
Right. So we would. Oftentimes if someone's trying to connect it, they're going to be using a standard compression fitting, right?
Well, I mean, there are fittings out there that are sort of designed for that.
Okay.
But they're very limited in terms of what you connect to.
Right.
Again, we did a whole podcast on our fittings where the fitting is not the problem.
Right.
You say the same thing. I've got this. The problem is the tubing. I've got this PTFE tubing. I needed to go into a thing,
right? But it's so slippery.
How do I do that? Like,
right.
what tubings are out there, and you can't use a barb fitting. They've got a flaring system you can use. That's a pain. People do it, but a lot of people don't have that ability to do it. Sometimes those flaring kits and those flaring options in terms of the fitting doesn't work in that application.
Right.
So that's why we saw the problem and we adapted something that we already had to use with hypodermic tubing, with PTFE tubing.
With PTFE tubing. So, there's a similar solution for the hypodermic tubing for different reasons. But so yes, there are various solutions. It's not like we have the only solution to help you connect it, but it's a pretty cost-effective solution, I think. And that is that and correct me if I'm wrong, we're going to use one of our standard compression fittings and we're going to replace a ferrule.
That's right.
With a polyimide graphite ferrule, instead of the stainless steel one that comes in the compression fitting. And we're going to custom drill it to ensure that it fits, the PTFE fits inside of it, and then when it is compressed, it's like holding it together. It doesn't fall out.
Right. There's an insert that goes in the inside of the PTFE tubing.
Right.
And then...
to maintain the opening.
Right. And then we have the ferrule. That's right. We replace the ferrule because, your compression fittings are either going to be a 16th, 8th, quarter. Right. So those are generally not going to work because the outside diameter doesn't match that. So then we're going to replace that with a drilled ferrule. I think we have the polyimide graphite. I think we also offer Teflon, but we don't. I don't know that we just list that on the website.
So we have a Teflon. We do a great
website.
job promoting that, but it's another option. Yes.
And so at that point, you replace the whether it's a swage lock or it doesn't matter what brand, instrumentation compression fitting, you'll replace the ferrules with the ferrules that we have, and it'll provide a secure connection with that compression fitting. And then again, you're going from whatever compression that is headed to the PTFE tubing side. At that point, it can be a union or an L going into some other kind of tubing. It can be threads. You can incorporate barb fittings into it. We have lure fitting options. So then you're kind of open to incorporate it into whatever circuit or system you have.
Right. And so, of course, we don't know your application specifically, but we can answer questions about any of it and get you the right size. So we supply the tubing, but then we also supply this fitting. And it's one that, because it is kind of made to order, like you can't order it today and we won't usually ship it today, but you give us an extra day or two for that. And, test it, see if it works for you. That's one of the applications that we get the most requests for is how do I incorporate this tubing? Like we posted a video on this, way before podcast days, before Tennessee days. We did a video and it's got thousands and thousands of views on it. And I've got tons of questions from it. It's probably the most shared video that we have. So we will, in this podcast, so coming up later in the episode, we'll tag or put some of that video embed it into this podcast episode. So at the end, you'll be able to see the instructional video.
The reason we did that, if you remember, we've got a website on it. And we did a great job. Our website does a great job explaining lots of things. We've got good pictures. At the end of the day, when you explain it to someone, even here, we're explaining it, I'm confused. Like how do you put that together?
Seeing is believing.
That's right. So the video goes through how to put it together, and in that process is sort of like, that makes sense.
Yeah, so you can listen to us talk, but this is really one of those podcast episodes that you're going to want to get the video on, like actually view it, so that you can see how it works. And so we'll be sure, like in the description, to put the time frame of when it's going to come. Okay, so we're going to have a piece of that. And the reason that we need to redo it, though, is actually we've had several website updates since that last video. So if you're shopping for that, we give you instructions even on how to purchase the part, and that's changed.
Then they get to see the vintage website.
Well, that's true. We might give a little glimpse. We can tag the original video somewhere in comments or something. Okay, so then we have a separate issue with hypodermic tubing. So for the PTFE, the main challenge that requires us to use this kind of specialized ferrule system, when you're searching for it, it's going to be a PTFE adapter ferrule. When you're looking for the hypodermic tubing one, different set of challenges, mostly related to sizes, right? Because we don't.
Yeah. So these are. It doesn't have the lubricity problem.
Right.
It has the issue of, I've got this standard circuit. Boy, it would be nice to, for whatever reason, I want to control, the flow of gas. I want to control, the amount of liquid coming out, whatever that is. The material's expensive, so I want to have less volume loss. Now, all of a sudden, I want to go to a hypodermic tubing. Well, how do I incorporate that into kind of the standard circuit? So the sizes are always a challenge. It's you can kind of figure out some ways if you've got welding capabilities with stainless steel.
Right.
Those are permanent and very difficult and sometimes clumsy to put together. The lubricity side of PTFE, that's the other challenge. This, for the hypodermic tubing, was the size issue. I have all these different sizes. They are not standard in any way, shape, or form into typical plumbing applications.
Right.
So how do I connect that into my circuit? Because it would be nice to get that, get to that size somehow, some way.
Right.
This provided that option. Same process, right?
Same process. You're going to take out the metal ferrules that it comes with, and you're going to replace it with this custom drilled polyamide graphite ferrule.
Yes.
You don't need an insert for that one, right? PTFE is so soft, you need that to maintain the opening. So it's not the same situation. What about, like, these are single use? Like, once you connect it, it's hard.
They're pretty much single use. You can. This is a challenge, right? So some of the applications are not highly pressurized, right? So you're just trying to get it to be leak tight. So you kind of put it together. And the video even shows, you just kind of quarter turn, half turn.
Yeah.
And once it's tight, it's going to tighten it up.
It's not crazy. It's not a crazy process.
We've had universities and other companies test at a higher pressure rating, and at that point, once you really compress that fitting, it's pretty much you've pretty much ruined the ferrule. You're not going to be able to reuse. You'll pull it out and reuse it or anything like that. Plus, it's kind of a one size deal. Like if you're using a 24 gauge hypodermic tubing and you buy the ferrule to go with it, and then you say, well, I want to go to a 23 gauge.
Different match.
It's not going to work. Yeah. So, I would say that in general, they're one-time use, but most of the time, they're putting it together in something that's not disposable, and it is reused over and over again. And with the components the way they are, I believe those compression fittings generally, it may vary from manufacturer, but most of those industrial or instrumentation fittings are 316 stainless. Yeah. The tubing is 316 304. Generally, it's in a line that can be kind of cleaned out and used, so it isn't like you're replacing that on a regular basis, anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the solution we have. Of course, we have a lot of fittings. We're talking specifically about, these compression fittings and how they can be used with a modified ferrule in order to incorporate hypodermic tubing and PTFE tubing. But we have another podcast that we did earlier, like you mentioned before, that talks about other, fittings that we can use in different applications. We're going to try and put increasingly helpful, I hope, resources out there for like matching your tubing and fitting. I know that that's a question, and it's intimidating because there's so many different options. There's so many different materials for fittings, so many different ways that they can be incorporated. And so we're going to try and make that a little less foggy with more and more resources. So just keep checking back website, podcasts, our resources page on the website, and we'll bury that technical information in there as well, so you have that regardless of the page that you're on. But we just wanted to give you that helpful tip. If you are trying to incorporate PTFE tubing or hypodermic tubing into a liquid or a gas circuit, you do have options. We can custom drill these polyimide graphite ferrules for you, and really quick turnaround. Even though it's custom, it's not like our normal custom fab lead times, like 1 to 2 weeks. It's just a couple days. Just give us an extra day to process this made-to-order part. Anything else to add? Yeah,
I would say this is one, too, where just to plug for our team, they're incredible.
Yeah. Yes.
We have a lot of information, and there is a lot of information out there for this, connecting these things and parts to use. You call because they're willing to talk to you. And at the same time, though, because it is difficult to maybe explain at times using words without some visual representation or just reading through a process, they're very good with the online messaging system, and they can share links there as well as just send an email and say, hey, I heard this thing on the video. Can you send me some information? And Stephanie and Stacy and their team, they'll put that together and send it to you. So you can just have that kind of right there. That's all I would say, because it is a little bit difficult to kind of wrap your head around if you're just sort of thinking about it and hearing about it.
Yeah, we're just trying to be vague to cover all the applications. Sure. We can be more specific with a conversation. We always love that. We try and tell y'all, we love the conversation. We love when you call or email or chat with us, and of course see us at trade shows, and we can talk more about the specific sizes that you're dealing with and how to match fitting to tubing size and what other modifications are needed.
We carry those, right?
We do
the
carry
trade shows.
I hope so. Okay. We already shipped the booth, man.
All right.
I think they're in there. Yeah. But if not, that's an easy picture to show, and you'll get the idea. And if there's something that's missing, if you are finding, you need a fitting that we don't have, we're trying to really ramp up the fitting side of things. We've got the check valves, we've got the lures and the barbs and all the different materials and the stainless fittings, and then trying to, again, give those resources and modifications for if something doesn't work right out of the box. So just continue to ask your questions. That gives us an opportunity to try and problem solve with you and hopefully come up with something that can provide a great solution for the future.
You said this, the other thing that can happen with these fittings is you may have a tubing in a device or something that you're using that's difficult to connect, that's an odd size. Say I'm just going to throw some metric size out. There's a possibility where if we have that dimension or even a sample of the tubing, we can create the ferrule to work with that. Yeah. So in an application, this goes beyond kind of what we've done into the custom side. Yeah. But there are solutions out there for the truly odd connections using the same technology or system, if you will.
Yeah, and like if you need a volume, like once you get into volumes,
Right.
we can provide more favorable pricing there.
That's right, yeah.
So lots of options, but again, contact us anytime, email, call, intercom, messaging. We look forward to helping you work through your challenges with any kind of tubing, but particularly in this instance, PTFE and the hypodermic tubing. So go change the world. The first component is a standard stainless steel instrumentation quality compression fitting. These fittings could be Swagelok, Bilock, or Parker brands, and you may already have them in your labs and shops. The second component is our custom polyimide graphite ferrule, designed to work with these instrumentation fittings. The third component is the hypodermic tubing you need to connect to your circuit. Now, let's look at assembling the system. Today, I'm working with 15 gauge hypodermic tubing, which requires a 1/8 inch ferrule. If I were working with smaller size tubing, I would need to use a 1/16 inch ferrule, but I'll show you how to determine ferrule size more in detail later. First, slip the compression nut onto the hypodermic tubing. Then, insert the hypodermic tube into the ferrule. The tubing should protrude past the tapered end of the ferrule by about 1/8 of an inch or more. Then hand tighten the compression nut to the fitting. Using the correct open end wrench, fully tighten the nut, and your connection is complete. Like the hypodermic tubing adapter ferrule system, the PTFE adapter system starts with a standard stainless steel instrumentation quality compression fitting. These can be any of the brands you're comfortable using. The second component is our custom polyimide graphite ferrule, which is specifically designed to work with these instrumentation fittings. The third component of the system is the stainless steel insert designed to match the inside diameter of the PTFE tubing and used to compress the ferrule onto the tubing to create a secure connection. Finally, the fourth component is the PTFE tubing. Today I'm working with 13 gauge PTFE tubing, which requires a 1/8 inch ferrule. If I were working with smaller tubing, I would need to use a smaller ferrule. Once you've determined the appropriate sizes of the parts you'll be working with, the process for assembling the system is the same for all sizes and fairly simple. First, slip the compression nut onto the PTFE tubing. Then, insert the PTFE tube into the ferrule. The tubing should protrude past the tapered end of the ferrule by about 1/8 of an inch or more. Then place the stainless steel insert into the PTFE tubing, making sure the insert remains at least a 1/16 of an inch from the end of the PTFE tubing. You should also be able to see the insert past the flat side of the ferrule, extending no less than 1/8 of an inch. Then hand tighten the compression nut to the fitting. Using the correct open end wrench, fully tighten the nut and your connection is complete.